Today, on this episode of Into the Unknown, I am joined with a true legend, Mr. Dorsey the Horse Levens. Dorsey, how you doing today?
Jeremy, good man. How you doing?
Hey man, I can't complain. It isn't winter yet here in Wisconsin, so I'm doing all right, man.
Yeah, you got about 2 weeks left.
Exactly. So, to kick off the show, one of the things is I think networking is so important because you really never know who you'll meet.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely.
And so I just kind of like to share, with the audience, kind of how we know each other and how we got to know each other. And it's funny because the first time we met, it was actually down in Atlanta. I was the historian and curator at the College Football Hall of Fame. And through those experiences, a lot of times our different sponsors, for example, Coca Cola, would bring in different former athletes to, sign autographs, meet fans, and, do all that good things. And I was fortunate enough in that career path, in that opportunity to really just meet a lot of different players. And, it's cool, but it gets to the point where you meet people and like, oh, that's neat. But all right, I don't know if I want to come in on Saturdays to do that after a couple times. But I have to laugh because, of course, I saw the list ahead of time and I saw that name come across, Dorsey Levens. And I'm like, oh man, you don't even know. You guys don't even know. Of course, Georgia Tech fans that were there were excited, but of course, I knew you from your playing days in Green Bay. After we got a little chance to talk, I always like to add people on LinkedIn just to kind of keep that connection going because you never know how we might be able to help each other, going forward. Of course, we fast forward a little bit, and now I'm working on the edits for the Green and Gold G Lounge with you, Ahman Green, and of course, Gilbert Brown.
Much appreciated too. We appreciate your help, and we need it because we're old school and we don't know how most of this stuff works.
Man, you guys make it fun. You guys make it fun, though. Well, let's jump right into this. I want to know what's your origin story. Who are you, and where are you from?
Born and raised in Syracuse, New York, about a half a mile from where, well, it used to be called the Carrier Dome. It's called something else now, where Syracuse University plays. Um, that's it, man. Small town, small college town. Grew up there. Obviously, I was in high school. I did pretty well in football. Was a parade All American. Uh, chose Notre Dame over Ohio State, Alabama, Syracuse, and UCLA. So I go to Notre Dame uh, for a couple of years. Not the greatest. Got real homesick my freshman year. The good thing about it though is that toward the end of my freshman year, I figured out I could play at that level, and I had an exceptional spring year. I got MVP of the spring game, maybe most improved player that year. But when I went back home to Syracuse to train for the season, I injured my knee actually at Syracuse University on their turf field, running some sprints, and I was probably going to miss 7 or 8 games. And I asked to redshirt. And at the time, they had this policy where they said they didn't redshirt players, but we had like 5 5th-year seniors on the team. So I went to Lou Holtz. I'm like, listen, man, I'm gonna miss 7 or 8 games. Like, what's the point? I'm not gonna be healthy. I'm gonna be rusty. I haven't played in that long. Now you're gonna throw me in for 2 or 3 games, halfway healthy. It didn't make sense. So I guess when he said that to me, and I said back to him, well, that's funny. We got 5 5th-year seniors. He didn't take kindly to that. He didn't. And the next words out of Lou Holtz's mouth were, if you want to play, you're probably going to be better off doing it someplace else. I was like, oh, okay. So that was it, man. I left. When I left, I was my number one goal was to get out of the cold weather. I'd had enough. So my goal was to go south of the Mason-Dixon line. So when I transferred, only visited 2 schools: University of Georgia and Georgia Tech. I fell in love with Atlanta on my Georgia Tech visit, and there's a coach there by the name of George O'Leary, who actually had a short stint as Notre Dame's head coach, and then something went sideways with his resume, so it didn't last long. But he was at Syracuse University when I was in high school, and he was at Georgia Tech when I transferred. So I got in touch with him. We came down, and the rest is history. Well, kind of, sort of, the rest is history. So after my year, I had to sit out. It's not like it is today. You had to sit out a year when you transferred. The coaching staff changed. Bobby Ross took the head coaching job with the San Diego Chargers. And a guy named Bill Lewis came in from East Carolina. Um, and I got moved to wide receiver my junior year, which was it was tough. It was kind of heartbreaking. Actually, I gave up on my NFL dreams. I was like, you know what, this probably is not going to work out. I'm playing wide receiver. I'm not a wide receiver. I'm a running back. Long story short, they ended up moving me back to running back my senior year. I averaged 7.4 yards a carry. And they get drafted by Green Bay in the 5th round.
It's incredible. That's incredible. What was it going like through that draft process, especially after you switched to receiver, switched back to running back, and of course maybe you didn't have the stats you thought you might have had throughout your entire body of work.
Yeah, my college career stats are awful. I don't think I have over 1,000 yards rushing in my entire career. So it didn't really pan out on the field. But like I said, I had a decent senior season, good enough to get an opportunity to get drafted by Green Bay in the 5th round. And then once you get in the door, you just got to prove yourself. So I went into practice every day in training camp my rookie year and just did the best that I could, and everything worked out.
What was that feeling like when you first walked into the training camp that first time?
Uh, Nerve wracking, just not knowing what to expect, um, not knowing if I was going to even make the team. 5th round picks, you're not guaranteed to make the team. And one of the first things that stood out to me was that everybody was good. Like, everybody was good. Everybody on the roster. There was like nobody there because their parents donated X amount of dollars to the school scholarship fund. Either you could play or you couldn't. And that was evidently clear. The thing that worried me so much is that because everybody was so good, I'm like, I don't know how they're going to make a decision like on who's good, because everybody can play. So it was nerve wracking. And back to your point about Green Bay being cold, it's funny that year the Don Hudson Center wasn't done yet, and the draft after the mini camp the week after the draft was in Mesa, Arizona, at I think Mesa Community College, because it snowed in Green Bay that weekend at the end of April. No surprise.
Oh,
Um, so my first mini camp was in Arizona with the Packers.
that's something, that's something different. I mean, of course now they kind of have it a little more with, as you've been there since. It's incredible how that's just continued to expand.
It has, and it's incredible how easy it is compared training camp, that is, compared to what it was when we came out and played. I remember the year we won the Super Bowl. First day of practice, it was Super Bowl or bust, and we scrimmaged, man, like ones against the ones right out the gate. Like first day of practice, 2 hours in, we just smashing, and I was like, "Yo, this is too early for this, man. We need to ease into this." But that wasn't. It's different, Back then, we could go 2 practices in pads back to back, and hit both practices, and we would have 2 practices for 2-3 weeks straight. It's just different now. They can't have 2 practices at 2 padded practices in one day. It's like a spa almost compared to what we did.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's some hard hitting, and especially those guys of the early '90s, the mid '90s, and I mean, even I'm sure that running back room, and you guys had some real fullbacks, like of course William Henderson comes to mind, and going against those guys, and of course you had those guys on the defense as well, man. It's no joke, no joke at all.
No, no, going against those guys. I remember, man, one day in practice we had a play. We couldn't cut our own guys in practice, and my responsibility was to cut the end man on the line of scrimmage, which was the defensive end, in which in this case was Reggie White. So I couldn't cut him. So I'm supposed to go block him head up, right? Nothing. They want me to do something that no tackle was able to do in 10 years, right? Just go move Reggie White off the line of scrimmage. And it was pretty funny. My guys got to laugh at it. I ran at Reggie full speed. I was like, you know what? If I got to do it, I got to do it. I'm about to crush Reggie. Not so much. Yeah, he treated me like imagine like a 3-year-old kid running up to you, and you just put your hand on her head and just kind of move them from side to side
Yep.
until you, and you just like kind of push me away. It was funny, but it was humiliating at the same time.
Of course, of course. There's a rumor that you might have Barry Sanders' helmet from a specific Pro Bowl. Could you elaborate on that real quick?
Uh, yeah, I had a helmet, not anymore. So yeah, after the Pro Bowl, it was customary for guys to trade helmets. And I think Barry was just, I think he was kind of over it. He had been there like 7 or 8 years in a row. He just didn't care. He just like at the hotel, all the guys hung out. I never saw Barry at the hotel during Pro Bowl week. I don't know where he was. But anyway, I was like, hey, Barry, man, listen, I hear, this is what we do. He was like, yeah, I don't really do that. I was like, he's like, you can have mine if you want. I was like, yeah, I'll take it. Thank you. And he signed it for me. And then I traded my helmet with John Lynch's helmet.
Nice, nice. What are your thoughts on Jordan Love, man? Are you excited for it? We're in a new era right now, and my whole life has been Favre Rodgers, so I'm looking forward to it, man.
That's crazy, man. It's like the Packers have had a Hall of Fame, first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback for the last 35 years, right? So Love is in the air, man. Like we talked about earlier, we have no idea what's going to happen, no idea. But we can sit back, watch the show, hope for the best. Obviously, it's his first year starting as a quarterback, so he's going to hit his bumps. The only way to become great is to play. And he has to play. He hasn't played a whole lot. So we're all anxious to see what he's going to do. I know last year, the last game I saw him play, I remember thinking to myself, man, he looks like Aaron. He looked like the way his mannerisms, the way he threw the ball, everything. And I was like, maybe there's something to drafting a quarterback when your top quarterback is toward the end of his career, and you can sit back and kind of teach that guy what the ropes are before you throw him in the game. It's worked the last 2 times. We're going to see if it's going to work this time. But, even with like a guy like Patrick Mahomes, he didn't wait 3 years, but he had to wait a year. He had to sit back out, and kind of figure it out. And I'm excited. The division is kind of open. I think everybody's picking Detroit because of what they did at the end of last season.
Yep.
But that's why we love sports, man. That's why we love the game, because you just don't know. Any given Sunday, anything can happen. And that's why we're glued to the TV every single Sunday.
Man, I could talk about the Packers all day, but I want to ask you a question on everyone's journey, everyone's path. They have a chance to go east, they have a chance to go west. What is a time where you took a step, made a decision, and you weren't sure of the outcome?
Man, that's life, isn't it? That's life. You roll the dice sometimes, you take chances. And at least my experience has been throughout my life, a lot of times plans don't go according to plan. I ultimately reached my destination, but it never looked how I thought it was going to look. In my mind, coming out of high school, being one of the top 2 running backs in the country, myself and Terry Kirby out of the University of Virginia, who later played with the Dolphins. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to Notre Dame. I'm going to win the Heisman after my junior year. I'm going to leave early and be a top 5 pick in the draft.
I figured out.
Yeah, it didn't quite work like that at all. So I think from my journey, man, the key has just been, without knowing for sure what's going to happen, you just got to take the next step, and then the next step, and keep moving forward, because you never know. And most guys that I know, players, athletes, the journey is never the way you think it's going to be. There's always going to be some bumps in the roads. It's going to be some challenges, going to be some obstacles, going to be some problems. You just got to find a way to keep going.
I think that's so important. It's kind of just pivoting and making the next right move, really. You don't know the outcome, but you just have to keep doing whatever you think is best at that exact moment. Of course, we can always look back and, I wish I would have done this or I should have done that. But really, I think, like you mentioned, at the time, you're just doing as much as you can and the best you can.
Yeah, and as I gotten older, and I have a mindfulness training company based around mindfulness and mindset training. Man, it's really just, like I said, you don't know what's going to happen, right? You just don't know, man, and anything can happen. So you just got to keep going, man. And whatever happens is going to happen. But there was a time when I gave up on my NFL dream, and maybe that's what led me to be so successful. I just kind of surrendered and was like, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. But I'm not going to stress about it. I'm going to keep working out and see what happens, man. But I've let go of all my regrets and all my resentments. I don't have, well, I wish I would have went here instead. There was a time in my life when I went through that, and it's stressful, reliving the past. And probably the biggest thing is that you're trying to change something that you cannot change. Saying I wish I did this, and I don't have a time machine. So it's just a waste of thought. My journey made me who I am. You know, it made me more resilient, stronger, and I discovered a belief about myself that I didn't know was there until I went through all this stuff and came out the other side.
Dorsey, I love that, man. Title of the podcast, Into the Unknown. What are you working on? What are you jumping into?
Well, you know, we got the Green and Gold G Lounge with myself and Gilbert Brown, Ahman Green. I'm also starting a Re.Mind podcast with one of my college teammates, Dr. Marlon Williams, and another good friend of mine, Joy Branch. And it's just centered around mindfulness and changing the way you think and changing your perception of the world so you're not stressed out all the time. You know, just like one of the things I talked about earlier was just letting go of the past. You know, there's so many things that we can't change. You know, and worrying about it and thinking about it and wishing you had done something different, it doesn't change it. You know, it just weighs on your mind more heavily. So what I've learned to do is just let things go, and it's a more peaceful existence, man. You know, not wishing and hoping that things were different than they are.
Hey, Dorsey, man, I'm gonna let you get out. I just want to again thank you. I look forward to more of the podcast, and let me know how I can ever be of help, man.
All right, man. Thanks for having me, and thanks for all you do for the Green and Gold G Lounge, man. I appreciate you.
Awesome. Take it easy, man.
All right, man. Have a good one.